Okay.
Okay. Hello everyone, and thank you all for coming again. My name is Tracy Mew, and I'm going to start out with a little quote from Senator Barry Goldwater. And I quote, "Most Americans have no real understanding of the operation of the international money lenders. The accounts of the Federal Reserve System have never been audited. It operates outside the control of Congress and manipulates the credit of the United States." So that gives you a little idea of what we're going to be talking about. It's perhaps the most important issue of the past century. And actually just a couple of days ago, the House of Representatives passed H.R. 459, which is the Audit the Fed bill. It has yet to see the Senate or executive floors, but there are many Americans who are encouraging this as a political victory for the free market. You may be wondering what the big deal is, or why it is important to so many Americans that we have transparency from the Federal Reserve System. And to understand just that, first we have to understand the basis of that system. That is why we will be discussing today fractional reserve banking and the money creation system. The reason it's called fractional reserve banking, first of all, is because banks are only required to hold or reserve a fraction of the funds that are deposited to them. That minimum requirement as of yet is 10%. So let's say you deposit $1,000 into the bank, and the bank then is only required to store $100 of that, and the other 90%, $900, can be lent or invested. It is logical then to assume that anything the bank lends or invests will come directly out of that $900 that they are allowed. But that is not the case. In truth, the $900 is simply created, most times digitally, from nothing, in addition to the original $1,000. This process is called money creation, and is detailed in the text authored by the Federal Reserve of Chicago, Modern Money Mechanics. And I'll quote a portion of their book. "Of course," and I quote, "of course, they do not really pay out loans from the money they receive as deposits. If they did this, no additional money would be created. What they do when they make loans is to accept promissory notes in exchange for credit to the borrower's transaction account. Loans and deposits both rise." Okay, so when you borrow money, they should take money from customer A and give it to customer B to deposit. However, what they do is they use the customer contract to create money out of thin air, and then they loan it out and charge interest on it. Next, they're able to loan out 90% of that newly created money. And also, when the money is deposited into a different bank, they're again able to loan out 90% of that newly created money. The process repeats infinitely, and every time this happens, the money is created and entered into the money supply irrespective of goods and services that are required. So this makes the dollar lose its buying power. This is also known as inflation. And inflation is essentially a hidden tax on the people. The process branches downward up to 9 times based on the 10% reserve requirement. So this means that for every $100,000 that is loaned out and created, actually almost $1 million is created and entered into the money supply. The Federal Reserve System has been using this process for 98 years. So coincidentally, the dollar has lost 98% of its value. And James Madison, the father of the Constitution, said, and I quote, "History records that the money changers have used every form of abuse, intrigue, deceit, and violent means possible to maintain their control over governments by controlling money and its issuance. So that gives you an idea of what James Madison, the father of the Constitution, thought about people like the Federal Reserve. Pairing this knowledge with the fact that the Federal Reserve has a monopoly on the American monetary system, we can note this. Every time the government borrows money and increases the national debt, it accrues interest and expands at about 9 times its original amount. The money supply is ever increasing as the value of the dollar is ever decreasing. Inflation occurs and exists as a hidden tax. The Federal Reserve, for now, continues to go unchecked, and this process repeats infinitely. This is why so many Americans are concerned with H.R. 459, which calls for a full edit of the Federal Reserve System and their fractional reserve banking money creation system.